Good morning, I'm Bree Driscoll, and here's your Spectrum News in 90.
Free Palestine! Watch out! Watch out!
University of California, Los Angeles protesters violently attacking one another hours after the school declared the pro-Palestinian encampment illegal. And in New York,
They got it. They got it.
police making dozens of arrests as they cleared protesters from Columbia University and City College. Pro-Palestinian encampments are still entrenched at more than 40 colleges nationwide, despite police and collegiate efforts to clear some of them. Former President Donald Trump gets a day off from court today and returns to the campaign trail. He'll rally voters in the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin. Trump won Michigan in 2016, but lost it to President Joe Biden in 2020. Florida's 6-week abortion ban going into effect today. It comes after the state's Supreme Court paved the way for the law's enforcement to begin. But in November, Floridians will vote on a ballot measure that could protect abortion access till around 24 weeks into a pregnancy. The Federal Reserve is expected to announce its interest rate decision today following a 2-day meeting. Federal officials are expected to keep key interest rates unchanged. Now here's a look at your weather on the ones.
I'm meteorologist Julie Marquez. The warm weather continues for not only the south, but parts of the Midwest and the East Coast too. New York City 75 degrees, Raleigh up to 83, 80s across parts of Ohio, St. Louis and back into Oklahoma City. Cooler weather is in the Northwest. Showers and storms erupting again in some of the same parts of the country as yesterday. I'll talk about the risk of severe weather coming up.
Thanks so much for joining us here on Spectrum News. I'm Bree Driscoll. Today is Wednesday, May 1st. Our top story, chaos on college campuses across the country.
Free Palestine! Watch out! Watch out!
At the University of California, Los Angeles, protesters violently attacking one another hours after the school declared the pro-Palestinian encampment illegal. And in New York,
They got it. They got it.
pro-Palestinian protesters cleared from Columbia University. Police wearing helmets, carrying zip ties and riot shields, entering Hamilton Hall on campus late last night. Protesters seized the building about 20 hours earlier as part of ongoing protests of the Israel-Hamas war. Dozens were arrested, and now the university is asking police to remain on campus until at least May 17th. Spectrum News anchor Jenna Enoch joins us now. Jenna, some incredibly jarring video coming out of UCLA this morning.
Good morning, Bree. Yes, police are seen wearing face shields. They're forming a line on the campus of UCLA. LA police saying they arrived on campus at the request of UCLA due to the violence, adding the department is working with campus police and other law enforcement agencies to, quote, restore order and maintain public safety, end quote. And we've been watching this unfold overnight. Take a listen.
Free Palestine! Watch out! Watch out!
In this video that you're seeing right now, it's posted on social media. It shows crowds of demonstrators clashing with each other. Police arrived on campus earlier this morning. Now, in that video, you can see protesters throwing fireworks at the encampment, and of course, other objects are being thrown around. Protesters are even moving barricades and clashing with each other and police. The mayor of LA posting this to X, quote, the violence unfolding this evening at UCLA is absolutely abhorrent and inexcusable, end quote. Now, keep in mind, this chaos happened hours after UCLA declared the pro-Palestinian encampment unlawful, warning students they would face possible suspension or expulsion if they didn't clear those camps. Bree, back to you.
All right, Jenna, thank you very much. And now we turn to Spectrum's Alyssa Policelli, who continues our team coverage of college protests. She joins us now from Columbia University in New York. Alyssa.
Well, Bree, we do know that there is a much different scene here this morning than there was just several hours ago. A large police presence does remain outside the campus here at Columbia University, and they will remain here through May 17th, 2 days after their scheduled commencement on May 15th. It's unclear exactly what access to this main part of the campus will look like today after restricted access was instituted yesterday, limited to only campus residing students as well as essential employees. Unclear if that has been lifted now that police have secured the campus. It's also unclear just how many individuals were arrested as a part of this operation, not only here at Columbia University, but also at City College, just about a mile away from here. Police have said there are dozens of individuals who were arrested, and we are expected to get an updated number later this morning as those individuals are still being processed. The NYPD is applauding their specialized units and the hundreds of officers that were here last night for what they called a swift clearing of both the encampment that has been set up on campus for nearly 2 weeks and of Hamilton Hall, the academic building in which protesters took over early Tuesday morning. According to Columbia University, the decision to invite NYPD onto campus was approved by their trustee board and was made early yesterday morning. According to Columbia, students gained access to Hamilton Hall after one protester was able to hide in the bathroom after the building was closed. They then allowed other students inside, but Columbia does maintain that they believe those who initially breached the building were outside agitators and not students of the university. It did take police 2 hours to clear protesters out of Columbia after they gained access to campus around 9 o'clock yesterday evening. According to officials from City College, which again is about 15 blocks away from where we are now, part of a crowd here at Columbia marched up to City College, and that's where they joined in with the group that had already been protesting and begun vandalizing a school building. Dozens of arrests were made there as well. So all those who are arrested, Bree, are still currently being processed in these mass arrest kind of events. They are taken to a mass processing center where many of them are charged with very similar crimes. So students who are involved in these arrests not only now face criminal charges, but those who are a part of that encampment also face a suspension of up to a year, and any student that was found inside of Hamilton Hall, the academic building in which they took over, could face expulsion. So still lots to sort out as we learn exactly how many people were involved in these arrests and how many of them were students of these two universities.
All right, Alyssa, thank you very much. The Federal Reserve is expected to announce its interest rate decision today following a 2-day meeting. With inflation rates rising above its 2% target, federal officials are expected to keep key interest rates unchanged. The annual inflation rate dropped from 9.1% in 2022 to 3.1% in January of this year. Stalled rates have raised concerns about when the next interest rate cut could happen. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says there's no rush to cut rates, but it could change over time. Next here on Spectrum News, the campaign trail in Michigan heats up. We'll take you to one of the most competitive counties in the state.
We live in a country where diabetes and obesity are our biggest health challenges.
A suboptimal diet is the #1 risk factor for dying of a chronic disease.
Black and brown communities experience the highest burden of diabetes.
Access to healthy foods are not an option.
Something's terribly wrong that this is allowed to happen.
Our healthcare system is not sustainable.
This is actually where the hard work begins.
Watch Exploring Your Health, USA1C, Fighting the Rise of Diabetes. Available on all your favorite devices.
Sorry, guys, that took me for... What is this?
Well, you know how our T-Mobile home internet can slow down?
Uh-huh.
Turns out, walls can get in the way. So I fixed it.
So instead of getting a Spectrum internet, which is fast and reliable 24/7, you got us internet that can be blocked by walls.
Yes, but I think I fixed it.
By smashing a hole through our wall.
Well, technically, walls. Yeah, I might not want to go in the dining room.
Don't settle for T-Mobile cell phone internet.
Kids are natural.
This is why I don't leave the house.
Get faster, more reliable internet speeds with Spectrum.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I found hope in the midst of an overwhelming situation.
Alcoholism is a disease that can affect any family. Everyone suffers, but there is help and hope at Al-Anon Family Groups.
Al-Anon gave me my life back. I'm a better father and husband.
Are you in an overwhelming situation because of someone else's drinking? Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Local and virtual meetings are available. Maybe one could work for you. Call 1-866-200-0033 or visit alanon.org/hope.
Hello, I'm meteorologist Julie Marquez. Let's take a look at the active weather we've had recently with all of the reports of severe weather from Texas all the way up into parts of Kansas, Nebraska, and Iowa. Every one of these boxes is representing where we had a report of damaging wind or large hail or tornadoes too. And some of the hail was large enough yesterday that car windshields were damaged in Texas. We had a lot of reports of severe weather in Oklahoma, Kansas, and parts of Iowa and in Nebraska. In fact, one of these areas right here, that was a tornado that reportedly did damage yesterday, and that was at 4:41 yesterday afternoon. Now, the same areas, very similar, have a risk of additional severe storms today. Lincoln, Omaha, Nebraska, all the way down to Oklahoma City, and a lot of Texas too. And for areas like Dallas-Fort Worth area, you'll need to be prepared for the risk of storms, some severe, increasing late today and through the night. Midland, Odessa, same thing. That orange shading you see there, that's a level 3 out of 5 of getting that large hail, tornado threat, and winds that could be over 70 miles per hour. Wichita, Kansas, same thing. Kansas City are kind of on the edge of that, so watch out for those storms, and across parts of Nebraska too. What we have is an area of low pressure. We have this system moving eastward, and look at what's happening later today. This is tonight around 9 o'clock. Look at these explosive thunderstorms taking place. We have this area that is going to be moving eastward along with very heavy rainfall that could lead to some flooding for parts of the central U.S. in the days ahead. Tomorrow, that area of rain is moving to St. Louis, places like Chicago, Madison, Milwaukee, Green Bay. Thursday into Friday will continue with our chances of rain here. Those areas of rain will continue to move eastward, eventually toward Ohio. So watch out for the severe risk of storms in Oklahoma City, 80 today, 80s Dallas, Austin, and San Antonio, with that risk increasing tonight. New Orleans has some fog, then partly sunny with a high of 85 degrees.
Well, if you're just joining us or heading out the door, here's a look at what you need to know. Chaos erupting on college campuses across the country. At the University of California, Los Angeles, protesters violently clashing. And in New York, police making dozens of arrests as they cleared protesters from Columbia University and City College. Former President Donald Trump gets a day off from court today and returns to the campaign trail. He'll rally voters in the battleground states of Michigan and Wisconsin. And the Federal Reserve is expected to announce its interest rate decision today following a two-day meeting with inflation rates rising above its 2% target. Federal officials are expected to keep key interest rates unchanged. And that's a look at what you need to know this morning. Florida's 6-week abortion ban going into effect today. It comes after the state's Supreme Court paved the way for the law's enforcement to begin. Spectrum's Jason Delgado has the latest on the ban's impact.
Beginning today, Florida will lose its status as the abortion destination of the Southeast. A new law is on the books, and it makes Florida among the strictest abortion states in the nation. As of today, Florida is banning abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy.
It's going to be a gut-wrenching experience for the people of the state to start hearing the horrific stories that are going to start coming out. Women making impossible decisions, not getting the health care access that they need.
The Florida Supreme Court approved the ban back in April. It replaces the existing 15-week ban, though it allows exceptions for sexual assault. All this happening under Governor Ron DeSantis and after the fall of Roe v. Wade.
This will represent the most significant protections for life that have been enacted in this state in a generation.
However, this could be a short-lived chapter. In November, a ballot amendment could guarantee access to abortion up to viability.
There are very real realities that exist in this state for women that shouldn't and can't be legislated.
To do that, though, the amendment would need at least 60% voter approval. Abortion opponents, meanwhile, are vowing to push back.
From the womb to the tomb. And as lawmakers, we're doing everything possible to defend life.
Now, Democrats up and down the ballot are working hard to spotlight the issue of abortion here in Florida. They're spending millions from billboards and digital ads, you name it. In Tallahassee, Jason Delgado, Spectrum News.
We're on the ground in the battleground state of Michigan this week, where former President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold a campaign rally this evening. Trump won Michigan in 2016, but lost it to President Joe Biden in 2020. The county Trump is visiting tonight is arguably the most competitive in the state. Our national political reporter Taylor Popolars has more from Saginaw.
In the heart of Saginaw, Michigan, is the World Outreach Campus Church. Pastor Hurley Coleman Jr. has been running the church his father founded since 2001. He's a native of Saginaw, who is not surprised this county, northwest of Detroit, has become a bellwether in the race for president.
There is a broad middle between the extremes, right and left. And that middle is, I would say, the general population of Saginaw.
President Joe Biden made a trip here in March, meeting with Coleman's son and grandson at a local golf course. The pastor likes Biden's legislative record and what he calls his authenticity.
The President of the United States chose to come to our community. That's huge. That's huge. The ripple effect of that is not stopping.
Today, former President Donald Trump is scheduled to hold a rally just north of the church in the town of Freeland. Ann Delisle chairs the local Republican committee.
I think a lot of people are very hopeful that President Trump can bring normalcy back to the United States again.
What makes Saginaw County unique is it's the only county in all of Michigan that voted for Barack Obama twice, then Trump, then flipped back to Biden. And the 2020 election for president here came down to just 303 votes. It's the type of place where one home has a Trump flag flying, while down the road, a Biden flag is on display. The reality of a Biden-Trump rematch, though, still settling in for some voters here.
I don't really think that Joe Biden is really the great person to run our country, but I don't really think Donald Trump is either. So, you know, it's kind of at a standstill for me.
Trump is visiting during an off day from his hush money criminal trial in New York. Delisle thinks the legal troubles are helping him connect with Saginaw County's sizable and influential black population.
Many people who would never have voted for President Trump in the past, because of that, they're saying, hey, you know what? I need to give this guy, he's getting a raw deal. I understand this. I feel the same way. And they're actually, it's actually benefiting him. It's going to help him in the polls.
Pastor Coleman firmly disagrees.
Nobody has ever said that to me. Now, I do think that it's a talking point that that side would use because they think it's attractive, and it does feed into the attitude of people who like to hear that. But nobody that I've talked to would ever even think like that.
What voters here make of Trump's legal troubles and Biden's policy record will be central to who this pivotal county supports in November. In Saginaw, Michigan, Taylor Popolars, Spectrum News.
Just ahead on Spectrum News, a militia group formed shortly after the Civil War that's still carrying out missions today. More on that just ahead.
Spectrum News Plus. News from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Hi, I'm meteorologist Julie Marquez, and the cooler weather continues in parts of the Northwest, parts of Washington state, starting the morning with frost advisories. Seattle up to 59 degrees today, San Francisco 71 with a low of 53, Denver's in the 70s, chances of rain, Las Vegas 87 degrees, and LA 71 today with a morning low of 55. We look at the East Coast and we have this big warm up. New York City 75 degrees today. Boston, you have some rain and it's cooler here, but Washington, D.C. continues with the more warm weather with highs in the 80s. Atlanta 86 today, lots of sunshine and a low of 60. Miami's going to be in the 80s with chances of showers and thunderstorms in parts of Florida for today. We also have the risk of severe storms again, especially later today through tonight. Look at all of these thunderstorms in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Iowa. So active weather will continue here. Then eventually this area of rain is going to move eastward. So for St. Louis, Chicago, Milwaukee, it looks like more rain will be moving in. Look in Kentucky here with some rain moving in through Friday, and then parts of the Carolinas. You can see it was quiet, but then we're going to get some additional chances of rainfall. A look at how much rain we could get. It could lead to flooding concerns. I mentioned this yesterday morning. We have an area here from Wisconsin and Minnesota all the way down to Louisiana and Texas, where over the next couple of days, repeated rounds of heavy rain and thunderstorms could bring more flooding concerns to this part of the country. Meanwhile, it looks to stay pretty dry for parts of the Southwest, where the highs today will be in the 80s and 90s. A lot cooler in places like Salt Lake City and Casper. Look at those 50s for high temperatures today. Meanwhile, it's a big warm up in the east. We have the Carolinas, parts of Virginia, Washington, D.C., Columbus, Ohio, Nashville in the 80s today. And we have some 70s in New York City for this afternoon. Low temperatures tonight in Florida, 60s and 70s. Same thing for Little Rock to Oklahoma City. And then look at some of these 30s on the map. So it's going to be pretty chilly tonight in Casper, Wyoming, with high tomorrow just 53 degrees. El Paso's at 85 degrees, San Antonio 85 on Thursday. We continue with above normal temperatures for parts of the East Coast. Look at the mid-Atlantic and look at how much warmer it could get tomorrow. Parts of Kentucky and Tennessee. It looks like that warmth is going to continue through the day on Thursday.
Well, it's certainly been an eventful week for Dodgers fans. First the game with no strikeouts, and now a baseball buzzkill in the desert. The start of the Dodgers game last night against the Arizona Diamondbacks had to be delayed for nearly 2 hours after a bee colony you see there swarmed onto some protective netting behind home plate. The Arizona home crowd were treated to a pregame show as a local pest control worker was called in to remove the thousands of bees that had gathered. He was then honored by throwing the game's ceremonial first pitch. The New York Naval Militia is a group that you may not have heard of, but it has survived the test of time. Our Victoria Halakar explains the group's beginnings and what its missions look like today.
It's all hands on deck and anchors away for the New York Naval Militia. Well, maybe something a bit more modern.
New York really is a maritime state, so there's a great history of that.
Part of that history is right here. These naval militias were started in the 1800s after naval numbers started shrinking post-Civil War. At its height, there were 30. Now there's only 3, and this is one of them.
We actually have more coastline than most other states. People don't think about that, but with Lake Erie, Lake Ontario, the St. Lawrence Seaway, Lake Champlain, the Hudson, and of course Long Island.
Captain Jay Dutcher joined a few years back.
All lines on deck.
Nearing the end of his service in the Naval Reserves.
Underway. I discovered that's a great way to still contribute to hometown folks right here in New York.
It's a proud legacy.
New York is the oldest and the longest continuous naval militia in the country.
PB 280, this is PB 281.
They've seen their fair share of action.
It was its own independent force from the 1800s up through essentially World War II. And in fact, the New York Naval Militia mobilized for the Spanish-American War and sent several full ships down to Cuba.
Nowadays, the militia falls under federal branches.
Most people go about their civilian lives until they're called to duty.
By law, no less than 95% of the naval militia must be made up of active reservists.
The governor in New York can call upon naval reservists, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard reservists who sign up separately to be part of the naval militia. So there's about 3,200 members.
From protecting ship passengers during a cholera outbreak in 1892 to helping in recovery efforts during 9/11 to preventing flooding off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario in recent years, they have missions across the state.
Now there's about 440 members, Navy, Coast Guard, and Marine, who are on state duty for the asylum seeker mission. Most of those are in the New York City area. Most recently, not really a big event, but it was big here in Buffalo, was the eclipse. And so the 2 craft you were on today, the Coast Guard requested that we have these available for safety and security out on the water.
Dutcher is looking forward to continuing and building on those 100+ years of service.
The governor increasingly is turning to the naval militia to augment the Army and Air National Guard.
Bow lines on!
For homeland security or natural disaster response. So we welcome any interest that people may have, and we'd be happy to have them.
Victoria Halkar, Spectrum News.
Fascinating story. Well, anchor down and stay with us because your News in 90 is coming up right after this short break. And don't forget, you can stay connected with us here at Spectrum News by getting your national and local headlines on the go. Just download the free Spectrum News app. It's available in the App Store and on Google Play. I'm Bree Driscoll. Thanks so much for watching. Stay right here with us.
The 2024 election will decide who leads our nation and the balance of power in Congress, impacting all of us. From Capitol Hill to the Oval Office, let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth coverage with our dedicated experts in local politics. Strengthening democracy by informing your community. That's our mission. Available on all of your favorite devices, exclusively on Spectrum.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country, and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
When I never graduated from high school, I realized I wanted to go back to school because I didn't want to work these back-breaking jobs the rest of my life. With the help of my father and having my son, that was all the motivation that I needed to come back to school. I felt accomplished, made me feel that I could take on whatever challenges life throws at you.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
My mother was always very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual, and she didn't know whether she should go forward or turn, and she wasn't even really sure where she was at. It was very unsettling for her.
I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, I don't want you to worry or be afraid. I'll be there for you, and we'll figure it out."